strong against online raids, strong against offline raids, somewhat affordable upkeep. Usually you get to choose 2 of these. In this video, I show you a base that merges the online defense capabilities of a classic 5x5 with inner Peekdown defenses, the offline raid protection of an upgraded original Frustrator X, in a multi-TC configuration for reduced upkeep. Meet the multi-TC original Frustrator X. It features a central unit with 3 Frustrator-style trapped drop-down loot rooms, 2 different types of unlootable loot rooms, 3 externally upkept parts that distribute the upkeep across 4 TCs, outer Peekdowns all around the base, a corridor with inner Peekdowns winding all around the central unit, a dedicated bedroom with 6 beds, and roof battlements with space to land mini and scrap helicopters. The design is based on this concept by my fellow builder Crimstick. Its first main feature is those new unlootable loot rooms. It uses the space below the chute to fit 4 unlootable boxes. If these boxes get destroyed, the loot stash is likely to fall out of range. Raiders then have to break through armored building blocks in order to retrieve them. Its second highlight is those foundation steps. Once they are armored, they prevent raiders from cheaply getting to the unlootable boxes by raiding through foundations. The cheapest way I could find to raid all 3 main loot rooms by perfectly exploiting splash damage mechanics in an assumed offline raid was 64 rockets. To take over all 4 external TCs and grieve the base, I calculate 62 rockets. A full raid may easily end up between 90 and 100 rockets. Of course, this base is not cheap, but still cheaper than a 5x5. This is the combined upkeep across all 4 TCs. This is about 25% lower than the upkeep of the original Frustrator X in its clan version. In addition, since the upkeep is spread across multiple TCs, you can leave this base unattended for 36 hours. If the amount of daily required high-quality metal intimidates you, please remember that most of the upgrades can be delayed. Yet, since later during the wipe groups often accumulate large amounts of high-quality metal, it is an advantage if a base allows to put it to effective use. This is a complex design. Practice it on a build server before building it in-game. Also, I heard your feedback. I will use fewer scenes that are highly accelerated, and I will show more parts of the build from a first-person view. On to the tour. We approach the base by air. People with excellent piloting skills can land the Minicopter in front of that garage door and store it inside of the base. For simplicity, you can also land it on the roof. The roof itself is protected by auto turrets. Those auto turrets have overlapping fields of fire and guard any spot where someone might ladder in. The roof ramps cover them so that they cannot easily be seen or shot out from the ground. Those roof ramps further give you peaks of different types for a variety of shooting angles. To enter the base, we use one of the airlocks. This is the Minicopter Hangar. Behind this door we have drop chests to the left and the electrical setup for the lower level turrets to the right. A turret guards the hangar so that it gets hard to lock you in during a raid. Down the chute we enter the bedroom. There are 6 beds for the most active team members. On all 3 sides we find exits into the shooting floor. Each of them contains a locker for raid defense kits. Note how all the doors can be closed from inside the base. You can climb down into the 2nd floor on 3 different sides. On the 2nd floor we have more utility items including boxes, electrical components and the tier 3 workbench. Those chutes are the typical Frustrator loot chutes. This one leads to one of the main loot rooms with 8 large boxes. This one leads to the loot room in front of the TC. To refill the TC below the core, spawn below the roof. Climb into this triangle and take out materials from this box. You can then remove the glass and refill the TC. There are 2 sleeping bags down here, which should be owned by your 2 most active members. Let's head back to the bedroom. From there we can reach the inner shooting floor with the inner Peekdowns. The peaks are sealed with electrical components to prevent falling through the cracks. Through this double door we reach the outer peaks. On the left we find standard door-covered peaks. On the right, we find tiny cracks as shooting ports, which are a result of the wall stacking of the footprint. They give you quite an advantage should an enemy player walk into their field of fire. Back inside the inner shooting floor, behind those doors, which are guarded by shotgun traps, are the chutes that lead into the ring below the peaks. This is also how you enter and exit the base. Again, we have 3 auto turrets guarding every angle. The ring is sectioned off by chain link fence gates. They limit raiders' mobility without providing them cover from gunfire. Below the lockers are the exits. These doors work as airlock if they are both open. The courtyard is used for furnaces, oil refineries, and to grow crops. If you open the doors of the airlocks in the walls, those auto turrets will guard large fractions of the inner compound. Use that to your advantage in case of a raid. This is the external TC. It is protected by a series of reinforced glass windows, which are no longer susceptible to incendiary rockets. Behind the armored foundation steps, you'll find a wooden foundation. If you break this foundation, the building privilege of this TC is no longer forwarded past the foundation steps. This can be very useful to replace the core TC should it have been destroyed during a raid. Onto the build. As a first step, we build the core of the base as starter unit. If you want to check whether the footprint fits, build. The footprint of the core of the original Frustrator, 2 lowered and 2 raised triangles on those sides, and 2 more foundation steps and a raised triangle. These are the foundations that will be upkept from the main TC. Locate those triangle tips, which will later become the 3 chutes to the main loot rooms. Build foundation steps surrounded by raised triangles going out from those tips. Then add another layer of foundations around them. Finally, build out another 7 squares from the center and terminate with an upgraded triangle. If you can manage to keep those triangles from decaying, this will later allow to quickly build the externally upkept parts. Before we continue, I will destroy all the foundations that do not belong to the core. This is what you should be left with. Secure the build site by placing a tool cupboard in the center of the footprint. Place it against one of the rear walls. This way you might be able to add another furnace for now, and later you will be able to upgrade the TC compartment from the inside. Upgrade the square and the 2 triangles left and right in front of it. Create an airlock on one side. Leave the outer door frame wood. The wall needs to be a half wall and a full wall on top. Place a sleeping bag into this triangle close to the wooden frame. Only after having placed that sleeping bag, place a roof ramp in front of the TC and close off the other wall. Fill the space below the roof ramp with another sleeping bag and boxes. Now add in the doors. Have the inner door swing inwards. These sleeping bags will be used to refill the TC and to allow late joiners to authorize themselves on it. Next, we construct the outer shell of the core to protect you during the build. Upgrade the rest of the foundations to at least stone. Surround the whole perimeter with half walls. Add another ring of full walls on top of it. Only on the tip which is closest to the door that leads to the TC, replace a full wall with a wooden single door as temporary exit. Place floor tiles onto the half walls of those 3 triangle tips, and door frames in front of the 2 which are not facing the TC window. Now use twig floor tiles to jump up to the 2nd floor. Surround the whole base with another layer of full walls. Add half-height triangles and close off the chutes with double doors. Close off the ceilings apart from the top of the 3 chutes. You can now use this space inside the core for temporary items. If you want to bring it a tier 2 workbench, place it firmly inside of the triangle, as later you will have to wall it in. If you need loot space at this point, hop onto the 2nd floor and create 2 loot rooms on top of those 2 triangles. Have the windows end up on the left side of the chutes as seen from the core of the base. Make sure that you upgrade at least the rear floor tile of the shelves to sheet metal, as you won't be able to reach it later. This completes the first phase of the build, which provides you with a starter unit for your group. In the second phase of the build, we will secure the full build site and create a compound. We start by building the external TCs to protect the build site from early griefing. If those lone triangles from the beginning of the build still exist, skip this step. Otherwise, locate the back of the chutes and start with a square, triangle, square, triangle, then build out 7 squares and add an upgraded triangle. From that last triangle, come back with 4 half moons and add a raised triangle at the end, which should be upgraded to sheet metal. Destroy the half moons, build out 3 squares, and add raised foundation steps which may not be upgraded past stone at this moment. Behind it, place 3 triangle foundations where the middle one remains wood. On one of the outer triangles, build a TC compartment. Place walls and window frames as shown. Remember that objects such as small boxes or cursed cauldrons can help traversing those window frames with ease. Window shutters can help to deny raiders intel. Now upgrade the foundation steps to armored. Finally, add 2 more triangles on each side of the foundation steps. They will protect the wooden floor tile from splash damage. Build these external TCs 2 more times until you have 3 of them. This external TC unit makes use of an old trick that I introduced with the Trinity base. If you destroy the wooden foundation, the foundation steps no longer transfer the building privilege of the TC to the foundations behind it. This can be incredibly useful if the TC of the core gets destroyed during a raid. If this happened to you, destroy the wooden floor tiles of all external TC bases. You can now replace the TC of the core. Once that is done, simply replace the wooden foundations. The external parts of the base will be upkept again from the external TCs. With these steps, it takes 32 rockets to grief the build site. One more note. These external TC buildings are quite minimalistic. However, thanks to those double windows, it is quite easy to turn them into a 15 rocket flanking base. I might show how to do this in another video. Next, we build the compound. Locate the arms of the external TCs. On the middle square foundation, we build an Alone in Tokyo style airlock. The entrance into the compound should be on the side, and the exit to the outside on the arm of the external TC. This version uses 2 double doors to provide space for your team to move through it efficiently. Barricades prevent enemy players from laddering in easily. Line up a high external wall parallel to the foundations. Clip it slightly into the window of the airlock. The second wall should point slightly inwards. Do this on both sides of the 3 airlocks. The remaining gaps should be easily filled with 2 more high external walls. This should give you a nice and spacious compound. In the spot between the external TCs outside of the compound, place 3 additional external TCs. Don't place them too close to the walls, or they may allow enemy players to jump into the compound without ladders. They can be walled off single triangle TCs. A stack of metal fragments in the TC will suffice for 13 days. 2 stacks of metal will give you 26 days of upkeep. So don't bother adding a window, which would just create a weak point. Place a barricade on top to prevent it from being used for laddering in. With the new compound being secure, use it to deploy large furnaces, oil refineries, and items to grow food. To keep those safe, set up auto turrets as shown in the video of the Retaliator base. The basic idea is to place one auto turret behind each of the inner doors of the airlock and point them towards the base. This way they can cover large portions of the inside of the compound, and they are protected while the doors are closed. Simply hook them up to a small battery, which can be sustained by a single solar panel placed somewhere on the ground. If someone jumps into the compound, those auto turrets will either kill them or severely limit their mobility and alert you to their presence. This concludes the second phase of the build. In the third phase of the build, we will work on the core and bring it to its final state. From now on, I will be upgrading every building block to its final tier. It will be up to you to ensure that you complete the necessary upgrades before a building block gets walled in and becomes inaccessible. Upgrade the 2 walls surrounding the TC compartment to armored. Head underneath the roof ramp. Upgrade everything else to armored with the exception of the window frame in front of the TC. The inner door should be replaced with an armored door as soon as you can. Upgrade all square foundations of the core to armored and all triangle foundations to sheet metal. The space in front of the TC will become our first unlootable loot room. We're going to use a design suggested by Infi, which I first saw in a video by Handbone. For that, we need to place 2 boxes onto the roof ramp. The placement can be tricky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. What worked best for me is to head to the top of the roof, place 2 carpets starting from the bottom and making sure that the second one sits on top of the first one, then place the 2 boxes. I would place the boxes as far outwards as possible to conceal the doorway. Make sure that the side with the dark blue patch is inwards. Code lock the boxes and make sure that everyone authorizes. Upgrade the 2 half walls of the chute to sheet metal, place an armored floor tile on top of them and attach a ladder to the wall. Place another armored floor tile above the roof ramp and add a layer of half walls on top of it. Destroy the twig floor tile for easier placement. This top compartment will have 2 large and 2 small boxes. These do not have to be code locked. Close off the ceiling with another armored floor tile. Jump back inside the chute and place 3 shotgun traps. 1 on the upper and 2 in the lower compartment. It wouldn't be a frustrator if there were no shotgun traps guarding these drop downs. Once they are placed, close off the loot room with an armored window frame. If raiders destroy the lower boxes, their loot stashes will slide down into the space below the loot room. Thanks to the armored window frame, more explosives are needed to retrieve those stashes. Therefore, these boxes are ideal for your high-value loot that you wish to keep out of the hand of raiders. Eventually, you want the chute to be armored to force raiders to deal with the traps. Once you climb out, upgrade the wall frame and replace the double door with a garage door. Now head to the airlock that leads to the TC. Take a few machetes and hit the soft side of the wooden door frame until it breaks. Then replace it with a full wall and upgrade it to armored. From now on, to refill the TC, spawn in one of the 2 sleeping bags. Use the left chest to pass loot from the chute into the TC compartment. We continue with the next loot room. Jump back down into the core and start filling out the triangles to the side of the new loot rooms with walls. Make sure that the outer walls are upgraded to sheet metal. Also embed a twig triangle at half height. This might require to remove or destroy items. Upgrade the half walls and the floor tile on the bottom of the chute. Now, if you're playing on a modded server with increased loot size stacks and 12 large boxes are sufficient to hold your main loot, use the same design as in front of the TC. The roof ramp will act as extra protection for the TC and make it much more costly to tunnel through the base. Here, we will use Crim's unlootable design for a higher storage capacity. Place 4 large boxes onto the ground. Start with the 2 rear ones and place them as close as possible to the core column. Then 2 more boxes should fit in front of them. Code log them all and make sure that your teammates authorize. Place a floor tile against the twig that you left inside of the honeycomb. 2 large boxes should fit on top. Close off the top and the side with armored walls. Add another set of boxes on top of it. Now climb down into the chute. Place a door frame and upgrade it to armored. Upgrade the stairs to armored as well. This blocks people from entering the loot room unless they destroy an armored building block. Ultimately, the door should be an armored door too. You can place up to 3 shotgun traps here. As before, you eventually want the chute to be armored. Again, upgrade the wall frame and close it off with a garage door. The final loot room will look the same as the second one. However, we first need to make sure that a workbench will be available. For that reason, we will place the tier 3 workbench before completing the last loot room. Place the tier 3 workbench against the back wall. Make sure that it is shown completely inside of the thick lines of the triangle. You should now be able to place a wall on its left side but not its right side. Place 2 small boxes underneath the workbench. Then place the wall on the left, rotate the workbench and place a window frame on the right. Then rotate it back. Before starting with the third loot room, run outside of the base and place 2 ladders against at least one of the chutes. Get back inside and start walling off the remaining triangles left of the entrance. That may mean to wall in your tier 1 or tier 2 workbench. Please note that you might have to destroy the tier 1 workbench to embed the half-height triangle into the honeycomb. Now use the same design as for the previous loot room. When finishing up, soft side out the wooden door of the chute and replace it with an armored wall. From now on, enter and exit the base via the roof and the ladders. Let's finish the second floor. Upgrade the core triangle to armored and whatever you can reach to sheet metal. Separate the core of the second floor with garage doors. The last open triangle next to the Tier 3 workbench can be used for a large battery. It's up to you how you use the rest of the second floor. If you are a larger group, you might want to leave it open apart from sleeping bags. Feel free to deploy the research table and the repair bench here if necessary. Have the chute guarded by at least one undrainable shotgun trap. From the outside, the base is still partially stone, so let's get outside and upgrade every stone wall to sheet metal. This includes the ceiling above the core. On the third floor, we will build a bedroom. Place wall frames to the right of the chutes and full walls everywhere else. Place 3 more wall frames at each of the triangles. Fill the inner frames here with shop fronts. Fill out the other wall frames with garage doors. If you can, use an armored double door for the outer ones. All these doors can be closed from within the safety of the room. Place a twig triangle in front of each of the outer doors to be able to get into the base more easily. Do not upgrade this triangle though. Build half-height triangles at each of the 3 chutes and close them off with a garage door. Further section of the core with garage doors. Have the rollers point inwards this time. Place 1 locker behind each of the first door on the way to the exits. The central space will house up to 6 beds. First, place 3 of them which are next to the exit so that they stick into the triangle, touching the adjacent square. Then 3 more beds should fit into the remaining space. Moving 3 of the beds into the center of the base creates these spaces, which are necessary to be able to get in and out of the chute easily. Close off the whole ceiling apart from the triangle above one of the chutes. As before, upgrade the floor tile in the center to armored. Further, guard each of the chutes with shotgun traps. As the final step of this phase, we build a top floor, which will later act as roof access and optionally as a minicopter hangar. If you decide to use it as a hangar, place a garage door in the faraway corner of the main entrance. Above the 2 outer chutes, create airlocks with a window each. Ideally have at least the outer door armored. Surround the rest of the perimeter with walls. Above the chute that leads to the bedroom is an ideal place for a half-height floor tile with an auto turret on top of it. One of the triangle spaces next to the chute can be turned into a drop-off loot room. The triangle space on the other side can be used for another large battery, small generators and electrical components. Use this battery to feed the turrets on the bottom of the base. Add an armored double door leading into the space behind those two compartments. Close out the whole room with a ceiling. Use shotgun traps to guard the entrances. One should go against the window frame of the drop-off loot room, where it is concealed by the double door. 2 more shotgun traps should guard the Minicopter entrance. Finally, 1 shotgun trap each should guard the outer doors of the airlock. For the time being, you can land the Minicopter on top of the base. Place twig floor tiles in front of the exits and ladders next to them. On top of the roof, we can already place the windmill. Pick one of the triangles above the airlocks, place 2 wall frames and a platform on top of them. Use nettings to get on top of that platform. And place the windmill from a twig triangle. By having the windmill offset like this, you will be able to land a transport helicopter on top of the roof. If you're worried that raiders might exploit that weakness, deploy auto turrets, place barricades, or move the windmill into the center of the base. If you can still afford the extra high qual upkeep, upgrade the 3rd floor of the outer walls of the chutes to armored. This makes it so much harder for raiders to enter the core. Keep in mind that you can delay most of the upgrades to armored until you're sufficiently established. This concludes the 3rd phase of the build. In the 4th phase of the build, we're going to construct the outer defense ring with the Peekdowns. Outside of the core, place 2 lowered and 2 raised triangles here between the chutes. Add a half wall and place floor tiles on top of the lowered triangles. Place foundation steps against the half walls of the chutes, but don't upgrade them past stone. First, place a floor tile above them and upgrade it to sheet metal. Then upgrade the foundation steps to armored. These provide extra protection to the space where the loot stashes of the unlootable loot rooms would drop if the boxes were destroyed. From the raised triangles, go out with 2 more foundation steps which can remain stone, and place a triangle between them. Next, we build the parts that are upkept externally. From the external TCs, build back foundations like this. 2 squares, 2 triangles in the center, 2 triangles each on the sides. The last triangle might have to be placed from those stairs to snap against the correct foundation. Once you have completed these steps 2 more times, the resulting footprint around the base should look like this. Now pick one of the externally upkept arcs of foundations. Place wall frames on those outer triangles 2 stories high. The lower one should be stone, the upper one sheet metal. Fill in the lower ones with armored double doors opening outwards. On the left side, as seen from the outside of the base, create an airlock with a window and an armored door opening outwards. On the right side, place a shop front into the upper wall frame. Repeat these steps on all 3 sides. Onto the outer sides of these exposed triangles, place sheet metal wall frames 2 high. Now place sheet metal walls all around the base as shown. Make sure to surround those triangles as well. This should have created a solid perimeter with 3 ground floor exits. The other 3 parts with the armored doors have become chutes, which will lead to the shooting floor. Before you head inside, place barricades onto the raised triangles with the sheet metal wall frames. Next, we're going to place wall frames inside of the peaks, which will provide concealment, stability, and make the gaps in the peaks smaller. Enter through one airlock and turn left. Place 3 wall frames. Upgrade the lower one to stone and demolish the second one. This is very important or the peaks won't place as intended. Next to them, on the triangle, place 3 wall frames. Eventually, they should all be upgraded to stone, but you most likely cannot yet reach the top one. Leave one gap, then place another 3 wall frames. Next to the other door, do the same as in the beginning. Place 3 wall frames, upgrade the lower, but again destroy the second one. Finally, in the center of those 2 triangles, place another 3 wall frames. Now repeat these steps on the two other sides of the base. In case you got the blueprints for chain link fences and gates, use them to separate the walkway around the core. This restricts the movement of raiders if they blow into one section without restricting your field of fire. The double triangles behind the chutes are perfect for 3 auto turrets. Combined, they cover the whole perimeter of the Peekdowns. Further, I would recommend using the space for sleeping bags to have extra spawn points in the case of a raid. The space above the doors can be used for lockers, which should contain anti-raid gear sets. As in the Retaliator design, feel free to litter the space with boxes as quick loot drop-offs. Next, let's work on the peaks and the shooting floor. Place ladders inside of the chute and climb up to the top to start with the Peekdowns. If soon triangle floor frames and triangle ladder hatches are introduced, add one above each of the 3 chutes. They will provide critical stability to the peaks. Then, attach 3 triangles to the wall frame below you. Attach another 3 triangles to the adjacent wall frame below which the exit is located. Then, add 2 more triangles onto these wall frames next to the door. Repeat these steps on the remaining 2 sides. Since now you can run around the base, upgrade all remaining wall frames to stone. Now test the peaks. If you're concerned about falling through them, use an electrical component such as the siren light to prevent that. At the same 6 places as on the bottom floor, place stone wall frames and fill in armored double doors or garage doors. Close off the triangles behind the entrances to the 3 chutes with full walls. In the spaces between the double doors, place window frames. Use embrasures and reinforced glass windows. The windows prevent you from being camped inside of your shooting floor. At the same time, they can be easily taken out if you need to use the shooting floor. Close off the ceiling. Between the doors, attach 4 triangles to the core of the base. Above the door, attach squares and fill in the space between the triangles. To protect the chutes, we'll use shotgun traps. To get them as close to the ground as possible, place 1 shotgun trap onto the outer triangle. Then a second one can connect with the first one so that it's just above the floor. Now you can pick up the first trap and the second one will remain floating. With this placement, the trap is very hard to anticipate and to evade or destroy. Now start placing the floor tiles for the outer peaks. Open the double door that leads to the outside. Place 2 wall frames for stability reasons. Step onto the triangle and place a triangle to the left and a square to the right. Place a triangle onto those wall frames. Then connect another square to the next external part. This should create these tiny gaps between the floor tiles. Head back to the first triangle and place a half ring of 4 triangles around those windows. Sometimes the placement of the last triangle is not easy. A temporary square floor tile can give you a better angle. Terminate with another triangle against the back of the chute. Once you completed the ring of triangles, place a wall frame into the center of it for increased stability. Surround those triangles with window frames and fill in embrasures. Use single doors to cover those gaps. Place the ceiling by matching the floor tiles. Ideally, upgrade the ceiling to sheet metal. This is how the shooting floor should look like. To cover the tiny gaps in the ceiling, place wall frames here. Use stone if you want to mostly conceal the forward gaps. Use wood or sheet metal if you want to be able to use them as sneaky shooting ports. To cover the gaps in the ceiling between the inner and the outer peaks, place roof pieces. It is easiest to place them from down here. Just don't place any roof against the sheet metal walls of the chute. Once you completed those steps, head to the roof. You can now upgrade the roof pieces from here. There should be 3 gaps. Fill them in from the neighboring roof piece. Since the roof of any Peekdown base is a potential weak point, let's protect it with auto turrets. Place auto turrets into the corners pointing inwards. They provide an overlapping field of fire and make it extremely challenging and dangerous to ladder or crash land onto the roof. With the additional energy demand, it might make sense to place a second wind turbine. To do that, build another platform like the first one. This still allows to land the scrap helicopter on top of the base. Regarding the electrical setup, I recommend to create 2 independent circuits. I would use the top floor battery to run the turrets below the peaks, and the second floor battery to run the turrets on top of the roof. This way, the battery is as far as possible away from the angle of attack which the respective turrets protect from. Otherwise, the setup is straightforward. Connect the windmill to the battery, run the battery into a master switch, and split up the output to feed as many turrets as you need. This concludes the build of the multi-TC original Frustrator X, a beautiful blend of offline and online raid protection. May the base bring you safely through the wipe, and take care in these trying times. Evil Wurst, out.